tonight's MALDEF 2019 Los Angeles Awards Gala. Tonight is brought to you by the generous support of our national sponsors, Toyota and Southwest Airlines, benefactors Kaiser Permanente, Munger, Tolles and Olson, Southern California Edison, the Coca-Cola Company, UPS, Walmart, Raul Lomelia Subel, Accenture, Atkinson, Anderson, Loya, Rudin, Romo, the California Community Foundation, Jeffrey Garcia and the Capital Group, Vasquez and Company, Western Union, Andrade Gonzalez LLP, AT&T, Bank of America, CBS, Charter Communications, City National Bank, Cordova Corporation, EKA, NBC4 News, Sidley Austin, Sodexo, Union Bank. MALDEF is proud to honor Alex Nogales, President and CEO of the National Hispanic Media Coalition. Actress and co-star of One Day at a Time, Justina Machado. And the Honorable Richard Alatorre, former California State Assembly member and Los Angeles City Councilman.
Damas y caballeros, please join me in welcoming award-winning journalist, co-anchor of NBC4 Newscast at 11, and the weekend morning newscast Today in LA, and your host for this evening, Michelle Baez.
Good evening, everybody. I remember this event. We get you guys liquored up, and then we try to get you to sit down. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to MALDEF's 2019 Los Angeles Awards Gala. As y'all take your seats, we will continue our program. We thank each of you for joining us tonight. Of course, this event wouldn't be made possible without all of your support. I'm gonna get this spinach out of my teeth while you guys sit down. So I am honored to be your hostess on this very special occasion for MALDEF. I'm usually asleep at this time. Ooh, I got my friends out there. Thank you. I'm usually asleep at this time because I do the news in the morning. So if I look tired or yawn, do not take personal offense, okay? You guys kept me up past my bedtime. So this is like a big night for me. I'm out. All for you guys, a special occasion, the Latino Legal Voice for Civil Rights in America, MALDEF. Thank you, MALDEF, for including me in tonight's event. Again, I was here 2 years ago. It's great to be back. NBC4, who I work with, is proud to represent tonight. So I want to give a shout out. There you guys are, my familia out there, NBC4 familia. So thank you. Before we begin tonight's festivities, let me share a few highlights from MALDEF's remarkable history for more than half a century. And if you guys don't stay quiet, you're gonna have to pick up the tab. Okay. MALDEF's litigation and advocacy have led to new laws, as we know, and policies with wide-ranging impact for the Latino communities and really the nation as a whole. Whether on the streets or in the schools, in boardrooms or living rooms, in legislative chambers or courtrooms, right up to the U.S. Supreme Court. Ding, 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 ding. Thank you. You don't want to see the ugly side of me. It comes out sometimes. It's not pretty. MALDEF has earned its reputation as a champion of Latino civil rights. MALDEF was founded in San Antonio, Texas, y'all. I'm from Texas. And then it was brought back here, so which is doubly special to me. Because according to its history, it has been based here in California, MALDEF, first in San Francisco, and today only a mile or so away right here in downtown Los Angeles. So MALDEF has made life better for Latinos across the nation, and just look at its record in California alone. Thanks to a MALDEF lawsuit, the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors was forced to redraw districts that were intentionally gerrymandered to keep Latinos out of power. And then that lawsuit led directly to the 1991 election of Gloria Molina, the first Latina, the first woman to serve on the board in more than a century. MALDEF extended its legacy of protecting the right of Latinos to full political representation with its work to enact the California Voting Rights Act of 2001. And of course, MALDEF is leading the force in protecting immigrants' rights. In the mid-90s, MALDEF led the charge against Proposition 187. Do you guys remember that? The ballot measure that tried to restrict access to many public services based on immigration status. That lawsuit that kept Prop 187 from taking effect resonates today amid these renewed anti-immigrant campaigns nationwide. And just last year, MALDEF extended its long history of voting rights successes, winning the first case in Kern County. I'm going to keep popping that microphone if you guys don't be quiet. Thank you. It's wonderful when you guys are quiet. Like we're like in pre-K now. We're like, okay. We're going to get treats and snacks. So they won their first case in Kern County with newly drawn districts that allows Latinos to elect representatives of their choice in the Board of Supervisors election. As we look back tonight on MALDEF's history that we're honoring, we are mindful that we still have a long road ahead. Throughout this evening, you'll hear more about what MALDEF has done and continues to do for a better quality of life for Latinos here in California and throughout the nation, as I mentioned. We're grateful to have your support tonight for some very important work. Now let's look at a video from this year's National Gala Chair, Toyota.
Today is the day to take a step. Take a stand. Take that giant leap. There's something impossible out there waiting for you. So, we have a vision to make movement better for everyone. To give everyone the same chance and the same hope to be their very best. Because when we're free to move, anything is possible.
Well done, Toyota there. Talk about diversity. Thank you, Toyota, for your commitment and support. Tonight, we are going to celebrate the careers and accomplishments of three amazing individuals who have dedicated themselves to safeguarding and expanding the civil rights of the Latino community. It's my pleasure to introduce our first honoree, and a good friend, Alex Nogales, recipient of MALDEF's Lifetime Achievement Excellence in Community Service Award. Alex Nogales, he's earned multiple Emmy Awards as a television producer and writer at KCBS TV Los Angeles. Today, Alex is president and CEO of the National Hispanic Media Coalition that I've gotten to know much better throughout the years and honored me in the years past. I was very grateful for that. He co-founded that in 1986 in response to the gross misrepresentation of American Latinos in media. He asks a lot of questions and wants to know answers about representation. The National Associate Media Coalition, a civil rights media advocacy organization, works to ensure Latinos are fairly and consistently represented in media, challenging media executives to embrace diversity and inclusion by making industry-wide hiring practices all-encompassing. They go into meetings and they ask these questions. They put them on the spot. Alex has long and firmly believed that representation matters in media because how Latinos are seen in the media is how we get treated. In 2018, Alex led a national boycott against Paramount Pictures, if you recall, for having the worst record of employing Latinos as writers, producers, actors, and directors. Consequently, in January 2019, Paramount announced an historic initiative, I should say, that would promote diversity across storylines, vendors, and crews in film, television, and animated projects. The initiative marks a significant victory in paving the way for achieving equality for Latino creatives in Hollywood. And in 2000, Alex and the Multi-Ethnic Media Coalition, which is a national group representing communities of color, brokered the first ever memorandums of understanding with ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox. The agreements have led to a slow but steady increase of Latinos being hired in front and behind the camera at the networks. The lasting effect in Hollywood prompted the Washington Post to write, quote, "If TV looks far more diverse today than film, it's due in large part to the work of Nogales and his colleagues." Wow. Let's take a look at Maldev's video tribute to one of our greatest media advocates, Alex Nogales.
What has driven Alex all his life, I think, was his upbringing, his youth, and what they experienced. He is the eldest of 4 children, and he was brought up in Calexico, California, but he was born in Santa Clara because at that time his parents were picking fruit. They went up and down in the fields, and there were actually signs that said, "No Mexicans and dogs allowed." One instance that he shared with me that really made an impact, he and his family were trying to register for a motel during the evening. And his father was up there with the clerk, and he remembers looking at his father, and the clerk told his father that they didn't have room for his kind at that motel. What that does to a child at that age, I think, drives him even today.
Over Alex's 50 years, he has achieved important work. Agreements with all the studios that document their lack of inclusion. That to this day, they are providing statistics that show what they're not doing. Because that's what's going on, what they're not doing. He's managed to get ownership for Latinos of FCC licenses in radio and television, advocating for us to have ownership in media. Because without that, there are no advocates out there for us that can create programming. He has been able to be the leader of a coalition of all the national Latino organizations and educate all of them to the power of media and why it's important that we be unified. So the National Latino Media Council, he has been its secretariat and spokesperson.
Alex is an amazing individual. He could have been anything that he wanted to be. He was a producer, he's a writer, he's incredibly creative. He could have been a studio executive, anything.
Alex's greatest achievement is waking up all of us, all the national organizations, all of the young actors and actresses and newscasters, all of our leaders to the power of media to the power of these negative stereotypes and how they hold us down, and how we have to be united, struggle against it, and overcome it.
Alex's legacy will shine for as long as we're all around. Today, the entertainment industry is that much better because of Alex Nogales. Not only has he enabled thousands of actors, talent, writers, and producers to enter and thrive in the industry, but the industry has actually benefited by those individuals that he has helped shepherd and foster into our industry. Today's industry that is making advances in increasing its diversity is only getting better. The content is getting better every day, and that is because of its increased diversity. We, the entire industry, have to thank Alex Nogales for that work.
Alex has a profound sense of justice. He has a profound sense of compassion. He knows what suffering is about, what the farm workers go through, what our community has gone through. His family lived through the Depression. His family saw how Mexicanos were treated here in this country, deported en masse in the 30s and the 50s, and again in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And today, he's felt that suffering in his own life. And that compassion has led to him loving his community. And that love is what drives him. I love Alex because he loves us.
Well done. Alex, just two things out of levity. I love that brown hat. And why weren't you in front of the camera? My goodness. You wouldn't even have to have lines. You could just stand there. So statuesque. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the nationally recognized Alex Nogales, the recipient of MALDEF's Lifetime Achievement Excellence in Community Service Award.
Thank you all very much. Please be seated. As you heard, I come from a farm migrant family. We started in Calexico after school was done, picked cotton, then went to Delano for grapes, up to Hollister and Gilroy for plums, and back into the Central Valley for tomatoes, and on to Manteca for more tomatoes and more grapes. I loved it. My brother Luis hated it. But it was very clear that my father thought that the only way we would ever get out of the fields is by getting an education. My dad was a third-grade immigrant. My mother, a first-grade immigrant. I'm talking about school. But they pushed school. My dad was a philosopher. He thought, this is what we've got to do. And my mother, like many Mexican mothers, she was a general. She told us how we were going to do it. So all of my two sisters, my brother Luis, they all went to universities. I was a burro. I didn't want to go, so at 7th grade I dropped out. And I didn't come back to school until I was 28, out of the service, married, 2 children. And I realized that if, in fact, I was ever going to get a chance to do anything of any consequence, I would have to get an education. So I did. I graduated out of UCLA magna cum laude at the age of 32. I went to work for KCBS television here in town. I was there for 13 years. And during that period of time, I saw who got the jobs and why they got those jobs. And it wasn't because of qualifications. It wasn't because of hard work or talent. It was because of how you comported yourself, culturally speaking, with the people that were above you. That was not Latinos. At that point, 35 years ago, if you can imagine, there were very few Latino or Latina reporters. Obviously, no anchors. And the news day in and day out, when it talked about Latinos, and you will remember at that time we were 43% of Los Angeles County. Ventura, San Bernardino, Riverside, and Orange County, they had huge Latino populations as well. But yet we weren't being included. And when we were included, it was a police blotter of sorts. Miguel killed Maria because she was going out with his best friend. Their kids were all gangbangers. They were killing each other in the streets. It was like that day in and day out. And then I got a call that like-minded individuals wanted to do something about this problem. And we were going to meet downtown. You know where we met? Maldiv headquarters. Now, what we didn't know, and coincidentally, there was another group in another room talking about the same issue, wanting to do the same thing. Is that a coincidence or what? And in that other group, you had two icons of the Latino community and leadership, Joe Sanchez and Bert Corona, you will remember. And they were wonderful people. And they came over and they said, okay, you guys take it on, and we will give you the help that you need behind the scenes. So we did precisely that. The first person that we elected chair was Armando Duron. Esther Renteria was right there and next to him. And then I was the third chair, and that was 25 years ago approximately. Things happened very, very quickly. Armando and Esther went after all these local stations because they were not hiring Latinos, they didn't have reporters, they didn't have anchors, and it was a crime blotter when in fact they spoke about us. They went after them in a big way at the FCC. At that time, they had to have a certain percentage of Latinos and other people of color in their employment ranks because the FCC mandated it. Well, they're all out of compliance, as you might well imagine. Out of compliance completely. So it was great. We went in there and we took them all to court, to the FCC. We threatened their licenses. It was absolutely fantastic. Within the next 4 years, we must have gotten something like 50 cases, FCC cases at the FCC to take away licenses. And some people didn't want to do it, and they would fudge their numbers, and then we would ask that they be fired. Here in Los Angeles, we had such a case. We got someone fired for not doing what they should have been doing. By 1999, I was the chair. Greg Braxton of the Los Angeles Times wrote an article that from the 26 new shows that were going on the air nationwide at ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox, there was not one single show that had a person of color lead. Not even a secondary lead. That's pretty impossible unless you're really trying to discriminate, right? So we gathered our forces here in town. We went to Washington, D.C. with Raul Izaguirre, and we had a conversation about this could not go on. 10 organizations around the table. We have been working with the Asian Pacific American community, with the Native American community, and with the NAACP, and we decided as a group that we would have to tackle this together. We did precisely that. And we signed memorandums of understanding with ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. Now, this was at a time that our leadership across the nation couldn't really put attention to this whole thing of media. And the reason for that was because there were very serious other problems that they had to take care of. Education, governance, you name it. It was all there. So media was put off to one side. And then we have people and organizations that didn't want to be tough. They didn't want to be confrontational like Maldiv was being confrontational. So they go out there, we had great respect for them because they would put themselves in peril, threaten their careers in the future. And we wanted to follow that kind of an example from Maldives, that they were doing these kinds of things, and why couldn't we do the same thing? So, within a short period of time, we have memorandums of understanding, and to this day, they're still enforceable. We still meet 2 and 3 times a year with each one of the networks, and we look at their numbers. And the numbers, I have to tell you, about Latinos are terrible, horrible. African Americans have done very, very well, as you all know because you all watch television. Asian Pacific Americans are doing very well as well. Latinos and Native Americans are at the bottom of the barrel. We are 19% of the US population. We're consuming at the rate of $1.5 trillion a year. We buy 25% of all the tickets sold at the box office. How can it be that we don't have parts of that action? How can that be? And remember, it isn't just about the fact that we will put another actor to work, another director to have a gig. It is about the perception that people outside our own community have about us. If we are absent, if people don't know who we are, the fact that we work hard, the fact that we're loyal to this country, the fact that we're loyal to family, if they don't know that, they judge us by whatever Trump says that we are. And that's exactly what we're up against. And we cannot afford any more to lay back and be nice Mexicans. And when I say nice Mexicans, I mean Salvadoreños, Guatemaltecos. We're all Mexicans, according to Trump. He doesn't know the difference. So it comes down to this, folks. The numbers have gone back when they should be. And now is the time to not be nice people about it. We have to be confrontational, aggressive if we have to. And it's going to mean a big move on our part, bringing our young people to march with us as we march with time signs earlier this year at Paramount. We did 3 marches, bringing to their attention that this was not acceptable to us anymore. And like was reported to you a while ago, we forced them to put initiatives forward to integrate their workforce, both in front and in back of camera. And that's what it's going to take. Now, something else about Maldives. My dad was a philosopher, as I said to you. And he passed on the idea to us that it wasn't going to be a free ride, that if we wanted out of the fields, we had to have an education, that if we wanted the same entitlements that non-people of color had and enjoyed, we would have to do the same thing. We would have to go out there and demand that we be included. Maldives was doing that. My dad, my brother and I, my sisters, we all agreed. And they have been the model for us as we have gone forward in our lives. So Maldives, with 2 presidents of Maldives here among us, we thank you and we appreciate everything that you've done to our community and with our community. Muchas gracias a todos.
Good evening. I hope you all have enjoyed your dinner and the networking opportunities brought to you courtesy of Maldives. But we are back for some more important messaging and celebration. I think you all are aware, but I am Thomas Saenz, President and General Counsel of Maldives. You heard from our terrific board chair, Raul Lomelia Subel, that I have now been President and General Counsel for 10 years. I want to say that that means I am now the 2nd longest serving President and General Counsel in Maldives' 51-year history. And it also means that in achieving that, I surpassed the now 3rd longest serving president and general counsel in MALDEF history, my very, very close friend and #1 professional mentor throughout my career, who is here with us, Vilma Martinez, President and General Counsel of MALDEF from 1973 to 1982. See, but let me emphasize, I beat her now. See, I have. But the tenure of Vilma, myself, and our longest serving president and general counsel, who could not be here tonight, Antonia Hernandez, who served for 18 years, is a measure of how MALDEF retains on our staff folks who are dedicated to our mission and who commit themselves to the hard work that we do. You all are aware of these presidents and general counsel. I do want to point out, as I always like to, that MALDEF is now 51. But through 29 of those 51 years, MALDEF was led by women. I know of no other civil rights organization that can make that claim. But those presidents and general counsel are representative of what we do in every staff position at MALDEF. I have been fortunate through these 10 years and through the 12 years before that when I worked at MALDEF, not as president and general counsel, to be mentored, taught, learned from the best staff members in every position, bar none, in our organization. I am here before you this evening to recognize 2 of those long-serving employees who have retired or will retire in this year, 2019. The first is someone who unfortunately could not be with us tonight because he is in the Philippines, where he intends to spend half of his retirement, half here in the United States, enjoying time with his daughters and his grandchildren. Carlito Manasan was for 25 years, MALDEF's building engineer and superintendent. Some of you know that about 25, 26 years ago, MALDEF bought our headquarters building here in downtown Los Angeles on Spring Street. And almost since that purchase, Carlito led the building, ensuring that all the mechanicals were working, ensuring that safety was our priority, and ensuring that all of the tenants, nonprofits from many different sectors, had the best services available. Carlito, after 25 years, retired in May from MALDEF. Although he's not here, please join me in thanking Carlito for his 25 years of service. The other employee who I want to recognize is here tonight. And she intends to retire at the end of 2019 unless I am able to convince her otherwise. I've not given up yet. This individual served at MALDEF for over 21 years of her legal career, an exemplary legal career in which she was involved in some of the most foundational civil rights cases in employment, in immigrant rights, and particularly in voting rights, where she is an acknowledged national leader in voting rights across the country. In those 21 years, she has served as staff attorney, acting regional counsel when we had a regional office in San Francisco, our national redistricting director, and more recently as National Senior Counsel. She has been a mentor and a teacher to young civil rights attorneys throughout those 21 years and the time that she was away from Maldiv. Among those she taught are the current President and General Counsel of Maldiv and our current Vice President of Litigation, who many of you know, Nina Perales. More recently, this retiring civil rights litigator, a tenacious fighter for all of us, led 2 trial teams in critical cases. She led the trial team that achieved the historic victory in Kern County, securing the 2nd Latino majority seat on the supervisory body of that county. And most recently, Denise Hewlett led a trial team of all women that won the tremendous victory that resulted in the removal of the racially motivated citizenship question from Census 2020. She is here tonight. I now want to convince her table mates to coax Denise, who otherwise will resist, to stand up and accept our acknowledgement and thanks for all of your service to Maldiv. Both Carlito and Denise exemplify and are really inspiration to all of us for the incredible challenging work that continues. As you all know, a few months ago, our community in the state where Maldiv was founded faced the most devastating, racially motivated attack on the Latino community in recent memory. It has caused Maldiv to assess further what we must do in the future. And tomorrow at our Board of Directors meeting, I will recommend to our Board of Directors that Maldiv undertake a 5th program in addition to our work in education, employment, immigrant rights, and voting rights, that we undertake a 5th program focused on rooting out all of the causes and facilitators of hate crime in this country. There is no question but that what happened to our community members in El Paso, Texas, has changed our country, has changed our experience, and has changed our challenge. But the resilience of our community is renowned and ever present. Please join me in watching an extraordinary video that demonstrates and supports El Paso Strong.
I've been seeing angels in my living room, that I've walked the sun and I've slept on the moon, covered in the fragrance of their own perfume, telling me the stories coming true. Well, you see these angels, these angels see the light. Yeah, I have my troubles alright. I've been seeing angels. They'll hold on to their secrets and torn up memories. We float above horizons and sail across the seas. I hope for better days, and lately times are tough. The angels give me strength, and I'm not giving up. So I'll wipe away my tears, I'll over my pain. They're pushing up my shoulders, and I hold on to their stay. I've been seeing angels, 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 angels.
Thank you to the filmmakers for helping us to never forget that our hearts and our strength are with El Paso, Texas.
Thank you very much, Tom. That's hard to do. Being from El Paso, Texas, and a newscaster, so when that news broke, I was hiking here in LA and with my sister, and it's so heavy and it's so personal that when I've gone home, I haven't been able to go by that site because it's a lot. But we got to move on, and it's important. And it's important to realize the issues at stake that show where we are right now in our nation. So let's move on now. We have an honoree this evening that I am pleased to introduce, and I've gotten to know throughout the evening. Justina Machado, recipient of Maldev's Leadership in the Arts Award. She is a Latina American actress featured in a very popular sitcom, the star of this sitcom, One Day at a Time. She's been featured in Jane the Virgin, 6 Feet Under, and Queen of the South. She was born in Chicago to parents who migrated to the United States from Puerto Rico. Her involvement in the arts can be traced back to her childhood when she danced at the Franklin Fine Arts Center and sang throughout her adolescence with various girl bands. She has a huge, beautiful smile, too, that just melts you. While attending school in Chicago, she was guided into theater by Myrna Salazar, co-founder and executive director of the Chicago Latino Theater Alliance. Myrna got Justina an audition with the Latino Chicago Theater Company that led to Machado landing a role. Upon completing her education, she was able to take the experience that she had gained with the theater company to New York City and later Los Angeles, where she landed her first roles on television. She would continue to feature in television and film roles more prominently, and now stars in these leading roles as Penelope Alvarez, a Cuban-American Army Nurse Corps veteran and single mother on One Day at a Time. So let's watch Maldev's video tribute to Justina Machado.
I think her accomplishment is certainly as an actress. She's an incredibly accomplished actress. I've said this to her and I've said it to many other people. I think she's really the best actress working today. She is brilliant in her ability to do comedy with incredible depth and groundedness, and to also be able to do drama with the best of them. And to be able to write for somebody that can do anything that's the treat, that's the delight. But aside from that, she's a fiercely loyal friend. She is a very funny person. She is a really loving daughter and sister to her siblings. Family and friends are incredibly important to her, and she will fight tooth and nail for them.
My sense of what led Justina Machado to this role in this moment is her talent. That's what, I knew shortly after I met her. This is one hell of a woman. And just a little bit after I knew that, I learned and won. Hell of a brilliant actress. As a performer, she can make me laugh. She can make an audience laugh at one moment, and she can make them feel deeply. She can make them sad. She's just a very compelling actress and talent.
I think her greatest achievement is just being a badass woman. She's a Latina out here representing, and she does it with a joy of life. She has the loudest laugh, and will have the biggest drink, and will be dancing the best at any function ever. It's so great to walk into a party and just follow the sound of the laughter, because she's the one that's laughing the loudest and enjoying the most.
I mean, I've learned that someone can be, I guess, super deep and super hilarious at the same time. I'm speaking of her as a person and as an actress. It's this incredible quality. She can run through 100 emotions in one moment, and then 100 more emotions in another moment. And there's a depth to her that is extremely admirable. In this time of representation, where it's more important, thankfully, than it has been in the past, she's just this shining, amazing talent. She's an incredible example, and I think it's a shame that honestly it's taken this long for the world to get to know her.
What I might say personally to Justina is, if you believed in yourself as much as I believe in you, the world woman is yours.
I mean, her legacy, I think, on a public forum and on a private forum are different. Her public forum is this incredible body of work. She is one of the trailblazers. We wish that there were a ton of Latinas you could point to that have the body of work that she has. There aren't that many that have been able to straddle comedy and drama, horror. I mean, she's done everything, and has done it with integrity, and has done it in the most amazing, beautiful, powerful way. Her power can be felt on the screen when you watch her. She puts her heart and her soul and her guts on that screen and gives that as a gift to us. So from a public perspective, that body of work, people will say, that's the first time I saw myself or a family member on TV. They'll point at Justina. And on a personal level, the kindness and the friendship and the love that she gives all of those that are fortunate enough to be in her circle.
Wow, what did I say? Her smile, right? One of a kind. Please join us in welcoming to the stage Justina Machado, recipient of Maldev's Leadership in the Arts Award.
Oh my God, that was really beautiful. And you know what was really great when Norman said, if she believed in herself as much as I did, how many of us in this room are like that? We can't even see the greatness that we have sometimes. You're all great in here. So really, let's get a big applause for that. Oh my God, thank you, Malda, for this incredible honor. I am so grateful that I can do what I love, live my dream, and in doing that, I can make a little bit of a difference. You know, when you're a kid and you're growing up and you have all these big dreams, you're usually only thinking about yourself, like, what can I do? Where do I have to go? Who do I have to meet? When am I going to be a star? And then you kind of get to Hollywood, and then reality hits you in the face. And you realize that you don't have the same opportunities that your Caucasian brothers and sisters do. And you realize that being an artist doesn't give you a pass. It's still the world that you have to deal with. And then you realize that you're not just doing it, you can't do it alone, and you're not just doing it for yourself. So because of that, I am really proud of every character I've ever portrayed. I'm proud of every job I've ever done. Because I know that there's somebody out there that looks like me, that sounds like me, that came from where I came from, and they go, okay, I can do that too. Because I know this is said to nauseam, pero sí se puede, mi gente. Todo es posible. Todo. Woo. All right, where am I now? I kind of went off. I went off all over the place. Oh God, one day at a time. So let's talk about one day at a time, because this is really why I'm here. I'm here because this show is changing the narrative that's out there about us. It's helping to change this narrative. It's a universal story about family. It's a Cuban American family. It's a Latinx family. It's a family that deals with so many issues. And so many shows nowadays, we see them dealing with these issues, but they're just dealing with them because they're popular. We're dealing with it because it's something that's important to us. We're dealing with immigration, with racism, with veteran PTSD, addiction, you name it, we're dealing with it, with humor and with compassion, and we're not hitting you over the head with our stories, but we're opening up dialogue, we're opening up conversation. And so many times I say that Hollywood loves to put, I can only speak for Latina actresses, in boxes. You know, and our boxes is either an over-sexualized Latina, an asexual cop, the suffering mother, or the smart-ass sidekick. And this is the show that I have that I'm on right now is helping to change that. And I think there's a lot of shows out there, and a lot of, like Jane the Virgin did that. A Grand Hotel kind of did that, which unfortunately got canceled. But we're trying, we're out there, and we're still grossly underrepresented, grossly. I mean, as Alex Nogales was saying, the numbers are going down, and I don't know, I really don't know, because I don't know what's gonna make a difference except for us being loud and making a difference, like he said. And that's very important. I'm all over the place. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore, except thank you so much for this honor. Thank you for honoring me. Thank you, Malda, for everything that you do. And thank you for making me feel seen and appreciated. I so thank you. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Justina. Let's support her and all of her films and shows that she's doing. We look forward to all of your continued success, Justina. Thank you for being such a positive role model for all the Latino community. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my very great honor to introduce the Honorable Richard Alatorre, the former California legislator, Los Angeles City Council member, Lifetime Achievement Excellence and Community Service Award. Born in 1943, the son of Joe Alatorre of El Paso, Texas, a repairman at a stove factory, and Mary Alatorre of Arizona. She was a beautician, and he and his sister Cecilia were brought up in East Los Angeles. He attended and graduated Garfield High School. Anyone from Garfield? Where he was the student body president. In fact, Alatorre earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in sociology from California State University, Los Angeles, and a master's degree in public administration from the University of Southern California. He taught sociology at the University of California, Irvine, and night courses in government in the federal prison on Terminal Island. He also worked with gang members and was an organized community member or community organizer. In 1960, in fact, he heard John F. Kennedy speak at East Los Angeles College and began handing out Kennedy flyers, became involved in the campaign of Leopoldo Sanchez, a Latino candidate for judge. While he was a Western Regional Director for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, he successfully initiated lawsuits on behalf of children, many of whom had been assigned to classes for the mentally disabled because they were speaking Spanish. And in the late 1960s, this was a real thing. He was a consultant to the U.S. Civil Rights Commission, and in 1972, he was elected to the California State Assembly, serving 12 years in various capacities, including chairman on the Select Committee on Farm Labor Violence, chairman of the historic 1980s elections and Appropriation Committee, and founder and chairman of the Chicano Caucus for the California State Legislature. During his tenure in the Assembly, he authored the California Agricultural Labor Relations Act, and in the words of Willie Brown, the former Speaker of the California State Assembly and Mayor of San Francisco, quote, Richard was as substantive as he was colorful. Overseeing our 1981 redistricting effort, he opened up the legislature to many more Latinos, changing an institution that's now represents California. So let's take a look at the inspiring life of the Honorable Richard Alatorre.
My first impression of Richard was that he was a leader. Richard is very, very interesting in that he's able to read people, he understands individuals and motives and where they're coming from, and he gives darn good advice. I listen very carefully when he is explaining an issue, when he's talking about a particular concern that we're all involved in, and so I really respect the fact that he has intelligence and wisdom. I think Richard is driven by the fact that he loves people in general. He loves the people that he grew up with in his community. He understands injustice, and he understands what it's all about to be in a position where you can help solve the problems of injustice. He believes in fairness, and ever since he was elected to office, he's been about raising those issues that nobody else had been willing to raise. And so I have a special love and appreciation for him because of the way that he cares.
Well, I think his legacy really in the Latino community, and again, its dominance in the fabric of California politics and California life will always be his legacy, because that was all by design. Looking ahead 10, 20 years and understanding that lines matter in politics.
He adored his father, and his father worked 2 full-time jobs and worked very hard to buy a home for their family. Took Richard by the hand to Monterey Park, which was about 6 blocks from where they lived in East LA, and he proudly wanted to show his son the home that he was going to buy for the family. And the lady opened the door and said, "We don't sell to Mexicans." And that, I think, drove him for his entire career, that experience would never, ever happen again to other people. And I think that's what's made him a fierce civil rights fighter that he has been his entire life.
I think Richard's greatest achievement is the inspiration that he has inspired in others coming behind him. I think Richard sent the message that if I can do it, you can do it too. No matter from whence we come, no matter that we didn't have a lot of money or resources, that we were even poor. we can make it. And that take advantage of every opportunity and take those advantages and use it on behalf of your people and on behalf of people. Have to change the system. I think his legacy is about inspiration. That's what I think it's all about.
When I think of the people on whose shoulders I stand, I think of Richard Alatorre. He is a sage, a counsel. He's someone that many of us in politics today look up to. And in my case, I see him as very much a mentor. If there hadn't been a Richard Alatorre, I wouldn't have been Speaker of the Assembly or Mayor of Los Angeles.
I think that Richard will always be remembered by his greatest achievement. And his greatest achievement was not only being a pioneer, a forerunner, when it was tough in this state to be a Latino politician. I can't even begin to imagine a lot of the insults, a lot of the slights, all of the things that happened. Yet he maintained not only holding his head high with incredible dignity, but getting some remarkable things done. But his greatest achievement, in my opinion, is his devotion to family, along with the fact that those reapportionment skills are why we are sitting here today in MALDEF's headquarters, basically looking at a Latino community that has rightfully found its place in California leadership.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome tonight's recipient of MALDEF's Lifetime Achievement Excellence in Community Service Award, the Honorable Richard Alatorre.
Let me, first of all, thank everybody that made this particular award possible for me. You know, it's important to me because if I think back in the years before I got elected, I met this feisty, 5-foot young woman then, and she had a great impression on me. And that was the first time that I had gone to New York, and I met Vilma Martinez. And Vilma was a true champion. She was a true champion, not only for Chicanos, but for people of color. And she was able to work hand in hand with some of the great legal minds that were involved in the civil rights movement, in the fight for justice for all people. And I had just gotten this job, and I went back to Los Angeles, and it was a time when the NAACP decided that they were going to open up an office in Los Angeles. And I was selected to become the director of it. And I was so fascinated with the Ink Fund and the work that they did. And it was something that I felt we needed in not only in Los Angeles, but throughout the Southwest. Because you saw some people here today being honored. It doesn't matter whether it is in television or movies. It doesn't matter whether you are a person that was involved in, really being a pioneer in that industry, or police officers, chiefs of police, and the like. And we look at the injustices throughout the Southwest. And I remember the day, and I was reminded about this tonight by one of my proteges at that time. He was a young man that went to Lincoln High School, and there was something about him that just amazed me. his ability to articulate in the English language. But what impressed me the most was his ability to articulate, no matter what the issue, in Spanish. He became a leader in the walkout movement in Los Angeles. He was an outspoken young man that believed in economic and educational justice. And that's my good friend Moctezuma Esparza. Now, it's all right, he deserves it. He believed in not only people, getting an education, but he also proceeded, got his master's degree, and of course, the pictures that he has produced in Hollywood and the things that he has done has led him to where he's at now. And now he's opening up theaters in heavily impacted areas, primarily in areas where Chicanos live, and being that we're large consumers of going to the movies, providing them the opportunity to go to a quality theater, and the money which you spent, at least it is well spent because it's turned over in efforts to do other things and construct other movie theaters. But what I learned from the process, and when Maldiv was started, he was one of the first recipients of the work of Maldiv, when 13 people were indicted for the conspiracy to commit a misdemeanor in Los Angeles. An absolutely ridiculous exercise of the legal system against young men and women that all they were doing is trying to improve the education of their children. So Maldiv has been a very important part of my life. To see Vilma Martinez come back, she lived in Texas for a long time and came to Los Angeles to head the Mexican-American Legal Defense Fund, and other women, as was stated. And it's interesting, an interesting statistic that two of the longest living presidents of Maldiv happen to be women. And there were two women that you put them against anybody, and I'll put my money on them. And they did a great job as presidents of Maldiv. And I wanted to thank my brother, George Plow, because seated at his table are most of the members of my family here tonight, with the exception of my wife that's seated with me, for the work that he started as a young graduate of USC and decided that his career was going to be in business. And he's probably one of the most prominent, most successful construction management companies in the country. But he is a person that I take great pride in, just as I take great pride in a lot of the people that I work with over the years. Our challenges in the years to come are no different than they were back in the 1960s. We still have police brutality. We still have discrimination against people of brown skin when they want to get into the movies, when they want to go in front of the television cameras and want to show their wares. We still have employment discrimination. We still have educational issues, but without the outspoken advocacy of an organization like Maldiv and others that are here represented today, we will overcome. We will be successful, and the communities that we happen to to represent, no matter where we happen to live, are going to be the direct beneficiaries of our work. I love the young people that are here, young people that are now young professionals, people interested in making a difference. We need you now, and we will need you in the years to come. Once again, my thanks to MALDEF. My thanks to all of you for supporting this organization because we need a strong advocacy organization to deal with many of the issues that we have today and in the years to come. Thank you very much.
What an honor to have Mr. Alatorre here. Thank you, Richard, for many years of service and dedication to ensuring that we are represented with dignity and respect. What a role model. It is our pleasure to bring back to the stage MALDEF President and General Counsel Thomas A. Signs. There was an A.
Well, thank you all for joining us tonight to recognize 3 tremendous leaders from our community, to remember what our community has faced in the past years, and to look forward to a bright future. It's with the partnership of all of you and many beyond this room that we are able to continue together to achieve one victory after another. I begin by thanking those who have been responsible for this tremendous evening, beginning with our enthusiastic and heartfelt MC. Thank you, Michelle Valles, for leading us tonight. I mentioned earlier that our National Board of Directors is here because they will meet tomorrow for our semi-annual meeting. But we also have in the room a number of former MALDEF board members. I'd like to ask all of our board members, past and present, to please stand and accept our acknowledgement for your ongoing support of our mission. The success of tonight is not possible without the volunteer efforts of so many, including the members of our dinner committee. I'd now like to ask our dinner committee to please stand and accept our gratitude for your support tonight. Of course, we have many staff members who devote time to ensuring that we get a good meal. I want you to note there are not only chiles, but also salsa on your tables. You don't go to many dinners like this with that on your table. But to make sure we have a great meal, a great program, and a professionally produced show. So I want to acknowledge and thank Gina Montoya, Sandra Hernandez, Julie Gallego, Belen Cid Garcia, Jacob Rodriguez, Jose Delgado, Bryant Gomez, and many more who have helped to make tonight a success. I asked them to stand previously, but I'm going to ask them to stand again because I worked them hard. I want to ask, and we also have, of course, tonight, as at every one of these occasions, some of our long-serving past staff members. So I would now like to ask all of our MALDEF staff, our Maldefians, past and present, to please stand and accept our gratitude for your ongoing efforts to achieve our mission. And of course, what makes these evenings such a success is that we have honorees who are so deserving of our recognition and so eloquent in acknowledging all of their efforts and all of the contributions of our own organization. So let me once more invite you to join me in thanking the innovative and tenacious Alex Nogales, the dedicated and incisive Justina Machado, and of course, the incomparable and strategic Richard Alatorre. "25 years ago tomorrow, this state, the state of California, enacted by 59% Proposition 187, an initiative erroneously named by its many authors as the Save Our State initiative. We know that 59% voting for Proposition 187 presented a tremendous challenge to the Latino community and to MALDEF. Many of you in this room may have been a part of the efforts to turn around initial polling that said even Latino voters would support the initiative that made it to the ballot and succeeded at the polls because it was championed by a governor desperately seeking re-election who latched on to Prop 187 as his vehicle to victory. At MALDEF, and I was there at the time, we were not involved in the election night mourning, the election night hand-wringing, the election night concerns sparked by such a victory for what was at bottom a nativist and exclusionary initiative. Because we had to be prepared to go to court the next morning, together with our allies at the ACLU of Southern California and numerous other organizations, to ensure that that initiative would never take effect. As the nation commemorates the quarter-century mark after Proposition 187, I want you all to remember that the victory against Proposition 187 emanated from this community, the Latino community. The victory not just in court, in successfully preventing the implementation of the most draconian provisions of that anti-immigrant law, but it was the Latino community that led in transforming the state of California as a result of the inspiration, if you will, that confronted us face forward on November 8th, 1994. It's important to remember that what could have happened from that 59% yes vote, particularly when you remember that we had in our community successfully turned around the polls so that the LA Times exit polling told us that 78% of Latino voters on that November day voted against Proposition 187. But not only that, our African American brothers and sisters and our Asian American brothers and sisters also cast a majority no vote on Proposition 187. What that means is that 59% yes vote came solely from the white voting community. Imagine the recipe for long-term division and strife in the polls that I just described. But instead, in California, what we saw was communities coming together, not immediately, but over years to transform this state to a point in 2019 where every community joins together in establishing our Golden State as the most welcoming to immigrants of all statuses to join us in this great and successful experience of succeeding economically, politically, socially, in thriving together. 3 years ago at this event, shortly after an election that caused many of us to face an abyss, or a perceived abyss that we never thought, so many years after Proposition 187, we would face. I adverted that evening to Proposition 187 as an example of our resilience as a community, of our strength in responding, not simply resisting, but forging a different path forward together in transforming the state of California. But as a quarter century after Proposition 187, we commemorate that victory and that transformation. We must recognize the greater complexity of the challenge today. Because even here in California, our transformation is yet incomplete. We have only one Latino justice on our California Supreme Court. If you look at the most successful corporations in this state, from Silicon Valley and radiating beyond, we have few, if any, Latino or Latina leaders in the C-suites of those corporations. In the entertainment industry, as you have heard from Alex and Justina and others tonight, and as you know from personal experience, in the entertainment industry centered for so long a few miles west of here, we are the most underrepresented community in the nation. We have been the largest minority group in our country for well over a decade, but our representation on television and in cinema in front of the camera is in the single digits. Our challenge in response to what we faced beginning 3 years ago this month is deeper. And the devious attempts to exclude, to make us invisible, continue to date. You all know that we had a tremendous victory, an improbable victory, predicted by none of the media pundits who commented after the oral argument about the citizenship question on Census 2020. But in June, we faced the dawning of that improbable victory in the form of Chief Justice Roberts aligning with his moderate colleagues to recognize the lie, the public lie, behind Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross's addition late in the game of that question. Like Proposition 187, though, I want you to understand that that improbable victory came from our community. Very briefly, you may recall that of the 6 cases around the country that challenged the question, every one of them included a claim that the addition of the question was intentionally discriminatory against the Latino community. But by the time the case made it to the Supreme Court from New York, only one case, joined later by our companion case, but only one case had a living claim of racial discrimination because only one case, MALDEF's case, had appealed the denial by a district court judge of that claim of intentional racial discrimination. What that meant is that when a deceased Republican consultant's hard drive came to light with ample evidence of what was behind the addition of the question, there was only one living court threat that the Trump administration would have to answer under oath for its actions and its motivations. Only one case had a claim with that looming threat to the administration, and that was MALDEF's case. And faced with that threat, the administration's lawyers subsequently fired, as you all may recall. But the administration's lawyers sent an extraordinary letter to the justices of the Supreme Court begging them that even though intentional discrimination had never been argued or briefed before them, begging the justices to end their misery by reaching out and saying that those claims that not argued or briefed before them should nonetheless never go forward. They wrote that letter because of a fear of us. And that letter boxed them in by saying that June 30th was the absolute deadline for making a decision about the content of the census. So 10 days into July, when Donald Trump had to face the reality that he could no longer attempt to get that question on the census, one case was responsible for that outcome. You won't read this in the press, so I hope you'll remember it tonight, because it was a case from this community and this organization. So tonight, I take inspiration not just from the transformation, still incomplete, begun by Proposition 187 25 years ago, but I take inspiration from the ongoing victories of this year and last year and the year before. Victories like the changes at Paramount Pictures because of the efforts of the National Hispanic Media Coalition and the National Latino Media Council. Victories like the representation in leadership of our legislature that began with the redistricting genius of Richard Alatorre. Inspiration from the ongoing efforts throughout the country to respond to the threat of that citizenship question by doubling down and tripling down on our involvement in ensuring that every Latino household responds to Census 2020, and that in responding, every household includes every individual from the youngest child to the most elderly grandparent in that count. Because I believe that in our Latino community, we have a collective memory that includes what happened with 187, even for those who weren't even born yet. That recognizes that every decennial census has been a victory for our community as it ensures greater representation in political leadership across the country. We cannot shrink from the challenge that we face, but our history shows, our modern, contemporary, and continuing history continues to show that in the Latino community, we know and believe that our households must count, that our dollars, whether expended on media and entertainment or any other corporate endeavor, that our dollars must count, that our leadership must count and must increase, that our votes must count. Yes, we have a special obligation as Latinos in California with the experience lived of Proposition 187. But we know that our brothers and sisters in Arizona with SB 1070, and in Texas with SB 4, and now the tragedy of the El Paso murders, we know that our community, in ways large and small, noticed, reported, and not. We know in our community that we count and that we must be counted. Make no mistake, the orange storm of racism and exclusion and mendacity is subsiding. And the warm brown blanket to comfort and warm us all will spread across this country. And MALDEF, together with all of you, will lead in ensuring that we continue to weave that blanket and encompass the path forward of greater justice for all. Thank you, each and every one of you, for your collaboration in our ongoing endeavor.
Thank you, Tom. And Maldefians. I learned something today. I like that. The Latino community is grateful to have you at the helm of MALDEF, really, truly. So let's give another round of applause for each of the honorees and program participants. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's program. Thank you for supporting MALDEF's 2019 Los Angeles Gala. MALDEF is privileged to enjoy the ongoing support of so many partners. Thank you for your commitment, and thank you for having me as your MC tonight. Be safe, and on behalf of MBC4, thank you again for having us be proud participations. Good night.